Yeah. Did your parents do that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's super sweet. That's not even fair. That means you had 2 birthdays growing up.
Pretty much.
Figures.
I'm gonna cut him up and send him back to China.
Oh my gosh. What did your parents say to that?
What's up, everyone? This been like a year coming, but I wanted to talk about adoption. So I have my friend Diane come. I always find, before we get into that, I always find the story that we met hilarious.
Is this the In-N-Out story?
Yeah. Doing it too.
I think you do a better job. I can try. Wait, do you want me to tell it and then you just mix in the spots?
Yeah.
I remember some of it, but basically it was with Impact, our college group at church. And I forget if it was one of the summer events where we went to In-N-Out first and then went somewhere else after.
I think it was like a call movie.
Yeah, it might have been like a drive-in or something.
Drive-in, yeah.
And so we went to In-N-Out. I was with Molly. She was the one taking me at the time. So I was a freshman in college. And I hadn't met Zach before. I think I knew about you or people mentioned you. So I think we sat at the same table and we were eating and I was getting to know you. And honestly, I hadn't talked to somebody with cerebral palsy before. So like I didn't know about the muscle spasms or anything like that. And so we were sitting across from each other and we're eating and telling jokes. And I realized actually he's really funny and you're very good at conversation. And at one point, I think, I don't know, one of your spasms kicked in and like he like threw his whole tray at me. And I mean, the food almost landed in my lap, but I think it didn't.
Yeah, like it was side of it and you caught it with one hand.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay. And I told him, I said, what are you trying to do? Throw your food at me? You're done? And then from there, we just realized we had a good sense of humor together.
Yeah, all I remember, it was like 200 degrees.
Yeah.
It was super hot.
Super hot day. Yeah, you have a better memory about that than I do.
Yeah.
I definitely remember the tray flying at me, though.
Yeah.
And Molly was stunned, too.
I was amazed that you caught it, to be honest.
Thank you. Softball kick, or all those years of softball finally had a reason.
What position did you play?
I played a little of everything.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, back on Calgary.
Adoption.
Adoption. So, how do you think it impacted your life?
Yeah. Like that could be a question that you could answer in a few hours or a few days or a few minutes as we have now. But I would say initially it kicked off with, I knew from a young age. I don't know how many kids find out right away or if they always know or if they're told later in life. I'm definitely thankful I heard early in life. It'd be a big shock to find out.
Yeah.
But from a young age with that knowledge, it impacted my view on everyday life, even just being thankful for everything. Thankful for that I'm in a family, I'm in a house. So already God was cultivating that thankfulness of that heart and mindset in my life. Not taking things for granted. And then as I got older, within the biblical context, it made me understand when Christ calls us adopted and heirs, that I've already lived that to some extent. So it made me understand that comparison or that parallel all the more. And it, just made it more clear.
Yeah, for me, it's the same way. Well, it's a little bit, like my mom told me like right away, and told me right away, and it was different because when I was later, I noticed that I was darker than my mom. Mm-hmm. So like I was like kind of a little weird, but like, but so I use a brown crayon when drawing myself.
Oh, that's funny.
Because I thought I was dark. I was black.
Right.
My mom. So.
That's funny, and I didn't even notice that difference. Other than my brothers had blue eyes, but I don't look physically that different from my family.
And what was interesting because my sister thought she was like Caucasian because my mom was white.
That's brilliant. So she didn't even realize that she was a different ethnicity.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So like we both have like different fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how you looked at one another or your parents. I mean, it goes to show you that kids don't really, we don't look at that as much, or we don't care about it as much.
Yeah.
I don't know, like your parent is your parent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true.
It's like, yeah.
But then with adoption, I mean, you've probably experienced this too, where there were hardships about it initially, where I stopped wanting to tell people I was adopted because some people would just be so mean about it, or...
Yeah. Yeah, I always remember this thing that this little kid said, one of the kids that she knew, like, was making fun of her being adopted. She said, my parents chose me.
Yeah.
And
we have the best comeback for any of that.
And they are stuck with you.
Yeah, exactly. I was taught that when I got older, and felt mean using it, but it's a very good comeback for people who are bullying you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so true. And chosen and adoption also goes hand in hand with the gospel, like we learned later on, for sure.
Right. What do you think the positive and negative of telling a kid that they adopted or not?
That's a good question. I think initially every kid is different, because I remember talking with other people, and most people want to know, and I think part of that knowledge is you want to be able to trust your parents. So you almost feel like they've lied to you for years if they haven't been straightforward with you from the beginning. Because if they wait till you're maybe 16, 18, 13 even, right when you're going through that change of mindset, you might have a lack of trust because you're thinking you held this from me for so long. So that benefited me from a young age. It built trust from a young age. My parents weren't on the same page about telling me. So my dad didn't know I knew for a long time. And I realize now his heart behind not wanting to tell me was because he didn't want me to feel different, and he didn't want me to feel excluded or isolated, as some kids could make you feel, or even other adults can make you feel that way too with their insensitive comments. But I think the benefit is to let your kid know you are adopted, we chose you, we love you, there was nothing wrong with you, and there was nothing wrong with your relationship with your birth family, but God wanted you in our family. And to let them know, if you have questions, I want to talk to you about it, and not make it like a closed door and like it's something to be ashamed of. So I don't know. That was my take on it. What about yours?
Yeah, definitely. Like I think early on, and make, and I know we talk about this before, but like make your adoption day like special.
Yeah, and I never grew up with that, so yeah. I liked that idea when I heard about it.
Yeah, like make it like a almost like a birthday.
Yeah, I like that, the gotcha day.
Yeah,
that's really sweet, and it's a good reminder of. Yeah, it's something to let the child know that that was important and special, and goes back to not being ashamed of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did your parents do that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's super sweet. That's not even fair. That means you had 2 birthdays growing up.
Pretty much.
Figures.
But yeah, would you ever want to meet your birth family?
Ooh, that's another one. I think we've talked about this before. I forget if you said you connected with yours.
No, my sister.
Okay.
She's actually in Korea, right? No, Japan, but she's going to Korea to meet her.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm in contact with my mother's family. I can't know who my dad is because nobody knows who he is unless my mother somehow miraculously can start talking again. But it's hard. I would love to meet her nephew and his family because that's who I'm in touch with and who we send letters and gifts back and forth to one another and communicate via Facebook, at least weekly. But it would be hard. I realize I'm also very sensitive, so I think it would be very emotional because the knowledge that I have about who she is and who she was is hard, because she's not the same person she once was. So it'd be hard to just see her in the state that she's in. But at the same time, I didn't grow up with them. So it's this weird dichotomy of you are my family, but yet you aren't, you know? It's a hard, But because of Christ, I desire for them to know the gospel, and I want them to be saved in that way more than I care about a physical, tangible relationship with them right now. I care more about their future state. That's why I'd want to meet them. But emotionally, I'd be a wreck.
Yeah, I think everyone would.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'd want to go with somebody, and my family there has told me, like, bring someone from America with you, don't come alone, because they think they understand the difficulty it would be, because I don't know the language. I wouldn't say I'm Bulgarian even, right? Like, I don't know, do you feel like you're Chinese, or?
Yeah, but it's definitely on my dad's side.
Oh, okay.
All
Yeah.
Chinese, right? Got that culture.
Gotcha. Whereas I haven't grown up with Bulgarian culture whatsoever.
Yeah.
So when I'm in it, I love the food, but I can't relate to it whatsoever.
Yeah. Did your parents try to like bring that in?
No. And okay, it's kind of a funny story. I think the Lord just prevented it. There was this woman that they met in Bulgaria who was going to come stay with them and kept in touch. She actually got in touch with me recently, where we haven't spoken for like over a decade. She recently reached out to me, but she was from Bulgaria. They brought her here. I was delayed. So she was supposed to be here when I was here so that there would be someone who could speak Bulgarian to me, because I knew the language only. I didn't know English yet. But ended up not working out. Flights didn't work out. The delay didn't work out. So I ended up never even associating with her. And then at the time, my parents had no other Bulgarian connections. And then I think once I hit college, we also found out there's this whole Bulgarian community, like in Concord. And so I started to get involved with it a little bit, and then it just died because I felt no connection whatsoever, because they're not Christians, and it was all about like being Bulgarian, and I don't find my identity in that. So it would have been nice and fun, but not really any opportunity.
Yeah.
So.
You know what I always think about when I think about adoption? Two things. So first, I remember the conversation I had with a kid playing video games, and I was like, yeah, I'm adopted. He was like, yeah, that's. Do you ever feel weird not knowing like your birth family?
Yeah.
And I was like, not really. Is it? To me, I would be like freaking out.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Not knowing them.
Huh.
But like, have you ever felt like disconnected?
Yeah. But it's funny. I look back now that I'm older. My teenage years were probably the most that I felt that way. But now that I'm around other teenagers, because I do the high school ministry, I realize whether you're adopted or not, every teenager is kind of going through that phase in a way. Like, you're trying to figure out who you are before your friends, before your family, before your whatever religion you're in, if you're in a denomination, right? And for us, right, who we are before God, where our identity is. So I think I went through a little bit of an identity crisis, I'd call it. And if you read back through some of my writings or my testimonies, you'll see that in my writings where I'm kind of having an identity crisis, where I'm like, am I adopted? Am I Jewish? Am I Christian? Am I, like, what am I? Versus saying, who am I? Or whose am I, rather. So there was definitely some of that.
I remember when I was a kid, I heard, first of all, this is such a, don't let your kids watch the news.
Oh, really?
Because they will figure. Like, I freaked out because I saw this news about this mom going to someone's, like, going to, like, the adopted family house.
Oh, yeah.
And trying to get him back.
Oh, dang.
And for a week, I freaked out, thinking
you could get taken away.
Yeah, every door knock, was like,
oh, dang.
Was that?
I did have a little bit of that too, where I thought I could be taken away. And it's mainly because people made jokes. Like, they weren't trying to be mean at all, but they would make a joke about, like, oh, they'll just ship you back. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
What if they ship me back?
My sister wanted to do that to me.
Really? What?
When I first came,
she didn't want you?
I cried all the time because I was hungry.
Yeah.
And that's how you got food at the orphanage.
Yeah, exactly.
You cried and...
we screamed at ours, so crying isn't as bad.
Yeah, so, like, my sister was like, I'm gonna cut him up and send him back to...
Oh my gosh, what did your parents say to that? We can't do that. It's too late. Oh my gosh. That's funny. But she was adopted too.
Yeah, it's always funny because I our ways of being adopted was very different because she was 8 months.
Yeah.
So they literally put her on a plane.
Yeah.
And send it to America.
It's kind of nice. She got shipped.
Rather than like having, like for me, the whole family went out and come.
That was the more typical one that I saw. Mine was supposed to be like that, and at the last minute, they told my parents that my brothers couldn't come with them. And part of that was the country next to my country was at war, right when they were adopting me. Kosovo war broke out right before the adoption was supposed to be finalized. And so the war broke into Bulgaria on the western side, and I was on the eastern side. But my parents had to fly into the western side. So I guess there were some bombed out buildings even when they were there. So, and this was the end of the Cold War era. So the Berlin Wall had just come down, not too much earlier. And then all the Eastern countries were still kind of communist in their mindset.
Yeah. Fast forward, but you want to tell a little story about your adoption?
Okay. Like how much context?
How much is it want? Speed running.
Speed running. Okay, so here's the speed version. So my parents had been looking for, had been desiring to have another child because my mother had miscarried the last two. And so they had been looking into adoption before I was even born. But America denied them. So, or I think the only other option was open adoption, which a lot of people don't know what that is who haven't gone through the system. That means that the birth family is allowed contact with the child. And so a lot of those kids were from ex-con families or their parents were in prison, which is why they were in the foster system. And my parents didn't really want to have that just because they already had two kids, didn't want to put them at risk and all of that. It would just be a lot of headache. And so they decided to go international. And plus they'd been denied because of their age and the fact that they had kids. And the adoption system was really different, I think, in the 90s than it is now. But they ended up going international. They looked at Russia, I was told, Bulgaria, and Romania, maybe? I don't know if they looked at Romania, but there were 3 countries, maybe even Ukraine. And they ended up deciding on Bulgaria. And just the process went on. So I want to say they were starting to look in maybe 1993. I was born in 1997, so you can see like it took them a long time to actually finally adopt a child because I was adopted at the end of 99. And anyway, so I was put into adoption because I found out my birth family, my mother obviously had me out of wedlock, and then they were a messed up family already, post-communism. So her whole generation kind of went crazy in the head, unfortunately. So she ended up being diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. And then when she got pregnant with me, her mother was still alive. So my grandmother probably thought, I cannot take care of a child and a sick daughter. So after I was born, my grandmother said, she needs to go to an orphanage where she can be cared for. We can't take care of her. And so, and her other 2 sons were kind of a little messed up too. And so, and her husband had died. So you think this was probably a very not a hardened woman, but she had to live through a lot. So it was in my best interest and the family's best interest for me to go to the orphanage. I was there for a couple years. Apparently a couple other families had tried to adopt me and it fell through. But my mom will always say this, how the timing of things, and this is for another story, the timing of what happened in my adoption was so perfect that if it hadn't timed exactly as it did, my parents couldn't have adopted me. So it's pretty incredible just to see God's hand through that whole process. And then I came to the States when I was about 2.5, almost 3. And yeah, the rest is history.
Wait, how old were you?
I was just before I was 3. And then I remember the court date where my adoption was officialized. Or officiated? I don't know what the right word is. Probably officiated. And we went to the courthouse. I must have been about 4 or 5 when that actually happened. So they had me for over a year until we did that. And then I didn't become a citizen until I was 10 or 11. So, I mean, part of it, too, if they hadn't told me, I would have wondered, like, well, why did I go to the court for that? Why did I become a citizen if I wasn't, your child? So, yeah, I was really thankful they did that. Because apparently when you are adopted, you don't automatically become a citizen. You still have to apply for that paperwork.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Otherwise, I couldn't have apparently gotten my license or gotten to college. So my mom's like, we should probably get a jump start on that.
Yeah. So my story is coming to. So like you, my mom had twins miscarried.
Oh wow.
And so they wanted to, I think they went to doctors, and they did all this stuff. And it was risky or like something happened and they couldn't. So they decided to adopt. And they adopted my sister in 89.
Mm.
You know? Actually, it took longer because they were making kimchi.
Mm.
So they apparently had like a month long, like I think kimchi, like where everything stopped and they package kimchi.
Dang, I didn't actually realize that the whole country shut down.
Something like that, but like so it took longer for them to adopt my sister.
Oh, that's funny.
And then after that,
mine was a war, hers was kimchi.
I mean, pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
But so they so like when they got my sister, like everyone, I think a lot of people was pressuring mom and dad to get another child.
Yeah.
Because, but my mom was like, no, I'm gonna do it when God's telling me to.
That's a lot the way my mom thought through that too. So
it's going to be, so 4 years later, 93, they went through the process. Well, they can mark if you open to disability or.
Oh yeah,
So they actually marked no.
Okay.
But like because my dad was worried about some stuff, but my mom thought that they could handle it. I was fine, but then I was adopted. No, I was born in a taxi cab.
Oh, that's right. I remember that story.
Yeah, so that probably have something to do with cerebral palsy. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Just because of the conditions.
Yeah, lack of oxygen. And stuff. So yeah. So that's and in January when I was born, so they went through all the process and they flew out with my sister that was 4 at the time.
Oh, okay.
They flew out to Hong Kong and stayed for 2 weeks.
Whoa, that's a long time.
Yeah. The adoption worker to like give it said she picked the baby with the finest feature.
Oh yeah. That's really great. What a story.
So mom and dad and my sister came out and made sure like I was okay and doing well. And during the court, when they were trying to get me out of the country, the judge was a new judge.
Yeah.
And wasn't sure about taking me.
Oh.
About my family taking me.
Yeah.
So he was like, I don't know about this. It seems sketchy.
Oh.
Yeah. And then the adoption lawyer was pointed to my sister and said, look, they had a 4-year-old, same thing.
Yeah.
She's doing fine.
It's a good thing you had Allie.
And then he finally relented to a game.
Wow, that's crazy. That one holdup, and you just see how if it's supposed to happen, it'll happen.
I was 10 pounds at 4 months.
Whoa.
I was small.
Yeah. I was small when I was born, but I don't think I was that small at 10 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love stories like that. It's pretty nuts. I ended up meeting one of the girls from my orphanage when I was older. So my family kept in touch. Only we look pretty different. I look more of the Greek side because Bulgaria is such a hodgepodge of people, and she looks more Roma. But it was really crazy to connect with her because we realized we found out I think we were crib mates when we were there. So it was one of those things where you're like, wow, this is weird that we have this connection that we don't really remember, but was way back when. So yeah. I think the surrealness though is when I look at pictures from back then. Because when you look at the photo, you think to yourself, that's not me. I don't relate to this at all anymore. But it's like the former self has died and the new self has been remade. It's pretty cool.
So, last question. For people, for parents that are planning for adoption and kids that are adopted, what words do they?
I have been asked this before too. It's been helpful. I love that there's such a surplus of adoption now. It used to be such a rare thing.
Yeah.
At least that's what it seemed like. I felt like when I was a kid, I only knew maybe one other person who was adopted, and now at our church alone, there's probably at least 10 kids, probably more. But what I would say to the parent is similar to like what your mom did, where wait on the Lord, and when it's right, it'll be smooth, it'll be easy, things will just go right, even when it seems like it's impossible. But also just be patient, and when you have the child, don't pressure them to answer questions or not ask questions. Let them always be open with them and let them know I'm here to talk when you're ready to talk or have questions, and this is what happened. But never make them feel bad for asking questions, or don't guilt them or make them feel like they love you less just because they're not the biological parents. And then for the kids, I mean, I would say don't feel insecure about it, I think. And that's easier said than done, right? Especially if you have someone who makes a comment, words are hurtful, and whether you're adopted or not, kids will always say dumb, hurtful things, right? But I think what I've always found too is that not to use it like a crutch, like, oh, I was adopted, or oh, my child's adopted, but to say like, you were chosen, like you said, right? Like that's such a special thing. But I also say every kid is different, every family is different. It's not going to be a one package recipe for everyone for adoption, but don't do it unless you really truly are going to feel like that child's yours too.
Definitely.
Yeah. You? Anything else you would add to that?
To me, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, your birth family or DNA is someone else, but normally it's the same thing. Like the same like family dynamic. It's same the board, so it's... And
community isn't blood related per se, right? Like, I think the older I get, the more I realize like your family is what you make it to be. It's not genetically combined.
Exactly.
Even though theoretically, if you go back far enough, we are all related. So.
Yeah, we are. But thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for reeling me into it.
I mean, it only took a year. Like every time we came over, we had such a good time.
I know.
I didn't want to like do this, but then it was like, we have to do.
I know. Things happen when Zach makes them happen. That's so real. Oh, well, thanks for having me. We'll have to do another one. Yeah. Or if anyone has any questions. I like Q&As.
Yeah, we can talk about adoption.
For sure. I like it.
Okay. See ya, guys.
Bye.